Okay. Calling to order a special meeting of the Glendale City Council at 2:27 p.m. on June 13th. May we have roll call, please?
Council members Asadrian.
Here.
Divine.
Here.
Kasakian. Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Brotman.
Here. And may we have your report, please?
The agenda for the Tuesday, June 13, 2023 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Thursday, June 8, 2023 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay, thank you. And our first item?
Our first item is community development regarding adopt plans and specifications and advertise for bids for the Artsakh Avenue Arts and Entertainment District Improvement Project, or direct staff to negotiate an amendment to the professional services agreement with Studio 111. A, resolution adopting the plans and specifications number 3893 for the Glendale Arts and Entertainment District improvements on Artsakh Avenue project and directing the city clerk to advertise for bids. B, motion authorizing staff to negotiate a professional services agreement amendment with Studio 111 in order to incorporate new design and construction documents to accommodate expanding the sidewalk on the west side of Artsakh, north of Harvard Street, and to implement a plaza design involving closure of Artsakh between the exchange parking structure entrances north of Broadway.
Thank you. And Mr. Galanian.
Yes, Mayor Brotman, members of City Council, back in November of last year, staff presented the plans and specifications for the Artsakh Avenue Improvements Project and requested authorization to move forward with advertising for bids. At that meeting, Council requested a couple of potential design changes. And since then, staff has met and coordinated with the consultant, design consultant, and been able to identify the timing, the scheduling, and cost impacts of such changes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bradley Calvert, our Director of Community Development, to provide the details, more details on this project.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. As highlighted, there are a couple of requests Council had for us to look into some potential design changes. What I'd like to do today is go through those really quick, discuss some of the consequences of that in terms of the timing of the project, the schedule of it, as well as the cost, and then hopefully provide what we believe as staff is a viable alternative, how we can still consider some of these alternatives or changes that the City Council brought up. A number of these changes occurred or were suggested on the south block along Artsakh. This is the proposed design. You can see that there's a number of different kind of opportunities for the sidewalk to be extended, creating kind of seating areas and gathering areas. The road is converted into a one-way both on the south and the north block. In this configuration, we have kind of what we like to call a chicane that essentially gets cars to slow down as they move through that space so that they don't kind of speed and zoom through, especially since we have these kind of new outdoor seating and gathering areas. One of the considerations was to extend the sidewalk here on the southwest corner to create additional seating area here, and part of that would include maybe consideration of removing this median where we have some of these palm trees. In order to do that, and we'll discuss it in a moment, that would add a significant amount of time to both the timeline of the project as well as the cost. Right now, what we're anticipating is that would add about 11 months to the entire process if we were to make any changes to the design at all. That would include even a modest extension of this sidewalk, removing that median, and then there was a third consideration actually of activating this parking garage. It was noted that we are creating kind of an outdoor gathering area, and it is right in front of a parking garage, not essentially the most active kind of use that you would see. But we do think that there are some opportunities for us to investigate activating this space through some kind of temporary improvements or installations that would create essentially some storefronts or maybe some sort of activation that would support kind of gathering. So if we consider all of these kind of three pieces, if we were to make these changes, again, extensive addition to the timeline, extensive addition to cost, but we think that we can look at this if we were to move through this project as is. If we were to go ahead and release the bid for the specifications and design or construction, we can still look into some of these alternatives. Everything that council had asked for that day for us to consider does not impact the current design. They're essentially additions to it. So what staff is recommending in this case, in terms of kind of extending that sidewalk out, we can look at that while we're in construction for this. I think more importantly, there was also a consideration of can we reduce those 2 turning lanes. Right now, we believe that we do need those. As you can see that red arrow on there, all traffic is now going to come out of this parking garage and go left. Right now, it can go right and left. There is some concern that if we remove one of those turn lanes, we're going to see significant congestion, essentially. What we would like to do is if we move forward with the project, once this is built, we can put a temporary closure to one of those lanes, study it and analyze whether or not we do see significant traffic impacts. If we don't, then that we could move forward with essentially extending that sidewalk and removing that lane. If we do see the impacts and they are significant and council would still like to see an extension there, then we could look at removing that median where the palm trees are. That would be a much heavier lift, but we think this is a good alternative for us to be able to study it in the meantime. In regards to the activation of the storefront, we would like to be able to study that during the construction of this project. We think there are some pretty feasible opportunities for us to be able to do maybe some modest or low scale or low cost improvements. Right now, that space is pretty shallow. We can't really build out a storefront space, if you will. That would impact the operations of the parking garage. That lower level circulation area is definitely needed for traffic to be able to get out. Plus, we have some of our ADA spaces down there. What we think we could do is look into an alternative such as this, where we're looking at smaller, kind of scaled down, say, shipping containers that could be plugged into the openings that are there. It could be a small cafe, it could be a small gift shop, it could be a small coffee shop, a number of different things. We've seen this proposed before. In fact, back in 2019, that proposal was brought forth for the Galleria, which City Council unanimously approved. That has since been scuttled because of the pandemic, but we believe we could re-engage with that company or a similar company to give us some alternatives to be able to plug into that parking garage where we can still continue to have the operations exist until we think of maybe a long-term strategy and be able to redirect some of that traffic. For the north block, City Council had asked for consideration of closing the center portion of this, similar to what we see now. We have some planters that are in place. Being that this is being converted into a one-way, we don't see that as a viable alternative right now. If we did do that, that would require all traffic to have to pass through the parking garage and be able to exit on the southern side. What we have with this design now is the ability to block off both the north and south portions of that raised kind of intersection or raised platform that's at the center. So we can still close this down whenever we want to for special events or special occasions, but we can still be able to let traffic move through kind of freely when needed. We have some space kind of carved out for food trucks to be able to park there. Deliveries are also going to be key because we do have a handful of storefronts that we'll be returning to council later this year to figure out how we want to move forward with that. But we do think that this design allows for kind of the free flow of traffic, the garage to still function, and we still get the opportunity to create a kind of closed off space. With that being said, if we were to change this design and we were to make modifications to it, it would add about another 11 months, 12 months to the project timeline. If we were to, if council approves the bid and the specifications today, we would anticipate that this would be open around this time next year. If we were to make any changes whatsoever, that would add about a year on to that timeline. The reason for that is we are at 100% construction documents. This is completely finished. If we change anything, those drawings would have to be redone all over again. We would have to find the funding for the design team to come up with those designs and then to be able to create new construction documents. We anticipate if that were to occur, it's about $710,000 for us to redo those construction documents. Again, we're going through and we're redoing the entire design package. Current state, this project is about 7.5 to 8.5 million. It's already been funded. So staff's recommendation is for council to approve the specifications in the bid, and we move forward while we investigate some of these other considerations that council brought forth back in November. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Satria.
The northern side of this project, my understanding was that there were different concepts built out as we were going through this, and one of those options was that we like close the whole street. Would that, why would this cost more if that was part of the original that was provided to the previous council?
This current design is what was approved by city council, and then we move forward with the construction documents, so therefore we would have to have them go back and redo the construction documents. That's where the significant cost is.
Yes, Councilmember Sargent, that, you are correct. That concept was studied, but as Mr. Calvert mentioned, the construction
There were
plans.
no
Right.
construction documents for it, okay. Would we be able to do the reverse on the northern side? So for example, if we want to keep it closed unless we want to open it, do we have that option, given?
It is possible to keep it closed. There are going to be essentially cable boxes that are there, but there would be significant impacts to traffic flow. The way this is set up now, because it becomes a one-way, right now, cars can essentially do a U-turn in that space, right? They can go in and then come back out. They won't be able to do that anymore because we're having these additions where the sidewalk's built out. If we were to do that, then all traffic would have to go into the garage, come back out of the garage, and then go south. That would create some pretty significant congestion. We know that fire also had some concerns with that as well.
So does it mean that if an organization or just anybody wanted to close down that street, they would have to end up paying more for closing down the street to have an event?
No, there wouldn't be a fee necessarily associated with that. This is a pretty simple closure. We literally just take a cable wire from one box to another. That's already installed actually in Montrose on Honolulu for the farmer's market. It's the same setup as that.
Councilmember Sargent, however, we do have a process for street use permit. So regardless of whether there is a hard closure or temporary closure, applicant will pay that fee. They do today pay that fee, not just on Artsakh, on any street.
Do they pay it for Artsakh Street as it stands now? Because the street's already closed
Right.
off, right? So
Right.
if somebody was using that space now, they would have to pay?
Yes.
And the fee would be the same?
Yes, Councilmember Sargent, the fee is related to the use of the street,
Okay.
not closure.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Oh,
think
you have
just one more. On the south side, if you go back to those mock-ups that you have, so what you're suggesting is that we would be able to install things like that now, as we're going through the construction, and then figure out a long-term solution?
We would study this as a potential solution. We think this may be one of the most likely solutions just because of limited space that we could work with. So this is what we would like to study. And the intent would be that roughly around the time that this street would open up in its finished state, that we would be able to have some sort of installation there.
Okay. I'll hold my comments.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Do we have
And
any
then
other
I'll-
questions?
I don't have questions, I just have comments.
Okay. Well, I have one question. How are we going to post the speed? What speed limit are we going to post? Is it going to be 15?
I'd have to go back and take a look at that. I can't remember what was studied exactly. Mark, are you aware? No, we'd have to go back and take a look. Obviously, this would be intended to be a very slow-moving street, particularly with the raised raised kind of platform as well as the chicane. So
Okay. I would assume 15, but
Yeah.
somewhere in that range, yeah.
let us know. Yeah, anything above that, I think, would be a problem. Okay, the storefront, okay, I don't have any other questions. Just so if there are comments, do you want to go, who wants to go first?
Not, I can go
Okay,
ahead. I'm happy
Councilmember
to.
Satran?
So I still have very valid concerns, I think, for building out something without any storefronts in front of a parking lot, and who's going to hang out there. And so I would be okay with this as long as we are actually considering building out something. I don't know what those storefronts look like. I don't know if they're these tiny ones, or we actually build out and take part of the parking lot. And I could live with the north side, but how long would it take for you to bring back the south side? Whether or not that lane's gonna work or not, and for us to be able to expand that sidewalk?
We would wait until the actual completion of the project, and that would give us the opportunity to be able to close off one of those lanes and then study the traffic impacts. So after the conclusion of the construction, I would anticipate probably 6 months or so to give us time to be able to study it.
Okay.
Look, I want to follow up on that. 6 months of a study period or 6 months to install that, that temporary arrangement?
No, we could install that relatively quickly. We would want that window of time to study it because we want to look at different events, different kind of seasons to see what kind of impacts.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all I have, and for me, that expanding that sidewalk is important, and again, building out something so we're not just having activity in front of a parking lot. I raised this briefly during the last time that this was up, and I know it's not part of the discussion, but I don't know if my colleagues have an appetite for revisiting that curtain. I know we're talking about the Artsakh Street project, but I know that thing's costing us $500,000. It's made out of metal. We keep talking about bringing shaded trees, but we're gonna be having a giant metal as an entrance to this space. And so I don't know if that's for another time, but
Yes, Councilmember Satrian, that's not part of the agenda as presented to council, but feel free to bring it up at another time for reconsideration if that's your
because we haven't
desire.
signed the contract or anything, right?
Yeah, the contract has not been fully executed yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Devine?
Sure. I think, we approved this project. It's been studied, traffic, speed, safety, design, et cetera, and to postpone it any further would be time and money, and I don't think we have the luxury. I think looking at the alternatives and studying as you go through construction is a good idea, especially on that curve on the Artsakh South. And to take those trees out would be devastating, I think. I think that's part of the charm and the beauty of that section, so I hope it doesn't come to that. Activating the parking, the storefronts, that Galleria project was really exciting, and everybody was really happy about it and really waiting for it. I think this is a good time to bring part of that project here. These can be pop-ups, would add fun and a variety. You could change them every now and then, so I'm all for the storefront options that you're showing here. I think on North Artsakh, I think leave the design. I think it's okay, and whatever adjustments you make, you can study, you can do them along the way. But as far as postponing it or redesigning it, I'm just not in favor of that. I think we need to move on and look at these other options as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Najarian?
Yeah, just briefly, I think we should keep the design as is, but I strongly recommend that we bring some activation with either coffee or boba or whatever can fit conveniently in those little containers. We do need something there, and I think that will help drive demand once the supply is there. Perhaps those folks who can't afford the Americana kiosk rates can come into Artsakh and have something also very suitable. So that's.
Yeah, and I concur. I did want to see this redesigned, but facing the reality of cost and time, I think we'll go ahead. And I do want to see us put in that temporary treatment there and taking out that special right turn lane and study that. I think that's a great idea. And I also do like the storefronts. And I like the idea of maybe rotating them. Maybe some of them could be the same, but rotating them, maybe somebody has a little, we did a book fair at the library. Maybe somebody wants to do a little book event or something. There's so many creative ideas. An artist can display work and, things
And
like
this
that.
can also be part of the Artsakh Creative, right? So.
Yeah, we can do a lot of things there. So I think you're hearing pretty much a consensus here. We go forward, and I'll take a motion.
I'll move the item.
So that's 1A and B? Okay, so one,
No, it wouldn't be Z.
A.
Be
We don't want
just
A.
keeping the current
Just
plan.
I'm
as 1A.
sorry.
Just A.
I'm moving 1A.
I'm sorry. Motion to,
Second.
okay, so 1A, sorry. So we have a motion, we have a second. And roll call, please?
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Brotman.
Yes. And next adjournment? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned at 2:47 PM. Thank you. And now we have closed session. Okay, so now we will call city council meeting to order at 2:47 PM on June 13th. And we'll start with roll call.
Council members Asadrian,
Here.
Divine,
Here.
Kasakian, Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Brotman.
Here. And your report, please?
Closed session items. Closed session, item A, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, California Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated et al. Versus City of Glendale et al., USDC case number 2:22-CV-07346-SB-JC. B, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Hordishian versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 20-STCV-14608. C, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Manim Tim versus City of Glendale, LASD case number 21-STCV-36187. D, public employee performance evaluation, city manager. E, public employee performance evaluation, city attorney. F, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Baldassar versus City of Glendale, LASD case number 20-STCV-01045. G, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure litigation pursuant to paragraph subdivisions D2 and E5 of section 54956.9, one potential case.
Okay, and I understand Council Member Asatrian will be
I'm going to be there for a brief period.
for a
not the
brief
whole-
period,
yes.
and Council Member Kasakian is, do we know if he's coming back? Because the reason I'm asking is, I'm thinking, and I hate to do this again, but I'm thinking that we should continue items D and E, the performance evaluation, until we have all 5 council members present. Agreed. So we will continue those 2 items, and do you anticipate, Mr. City Attorney, anticipate reporting out on any of the other items?
Mr. Mayor, we may be reporting on item 1B as well as 1C.
Okay. In that case, we will recess to close session.
Love is what you're swimming in, and if you can't see it, then